A horde of Arab robbers had possessed themselves of the fastness of a mountain and waylaid the track of the caravan. The yeomanry of the villages were frightened at their stratagems, and the king's troops alarmed, inasmuch as they had secured an impregnable fortress on the summit of the mountain, and made this stronghold their retreat and dwelling. The superintendents of the adjacent districts consulted together about obviating their mischief, saying, "If they are in this way left to improve their fortune, any opposition to them may prove impracticable. The tree that has just taken root, the strength of one man may be able to extract, but leave it to remain thus for a time, and the machinery of a purchase may fail to eradicate it. The leak at the damhead might have been stopped with a plug, while, now it has a vent, we cannot ford its current on an elephant." Finally, it was determined that they should set a spy over them, and watch an opportunity when they had made a sally upon another tribe, and left their citadel unguarded. Some companies of able warriors and experienced troops were sent, that they might conceal themselves in the recesses of the mountain. At night, when the robbers were returned, jaded with their march and laden with spoil, and had stripped themselves of their armor, and deposited their plunder, the foremost enemy they had to encounter was sleep. Now that the first watch of night was gone, the disk of the sun was withdrawn into a shade, and Jonas had stepped into the fish's mouth. The bold-hearted warriors sprang from their ambush and secured the robbers by pinioning them, one after another. In the morning they presented them at the royal tribunal, and the king gave an order to put the whole to death. There happened to be among them a stripling, the fruit of whose early spring was ripening in its bloom, and the flower garden of his cheek shooting into blossom. One of the vizirs kissed the foot of the imperial throne, and laid the face of intercession on the ground, and said, "This boy has not yet tasted the fruit of the garden of life, nor enjoyed the fragrance of the flowers of youth. Such is my confidence in the generous disposition of His Majesty, that it will favor a devoted servant by sparing his blood." The king turned his face away from this speech, as it did not accord with his lofty way of thinking. He replied, "The rays of the virtuous cannot illuminate such as are radically vicious. To give education to the worthless is like throwing walnuts upon a dome. It were wiser to eradicate the tree of their wickedness, and annihilate their tribe. For to put out a fire and leave the embers, and to kill a viper and foster its young, would not be the acts of rational beings. Though the clouds pour down the water of vegetation, thou canst never gather fruit from a willow twig. Exalt not the fortune of the abject, for thou canst never extract sugar from a mat or common cane." The vizier listened to this speech, willingly or not he approved of it, and applauded the good sense of the king, and said, "What His Majesty, whose dominion is eternal, is pleased to remark is the mirror of probity and essence of good policy, for had he been brought up in the society of those vagabonds, and confined to their service, he would have followed their vicious courses. Your servant, however, trusts that he may be instructed to associate with the virtuous, and take to the habits of the prudent, for he is still a child, and the lawless and refractory principles of that gang cannot have yet tainted his mind, and it is in tradition that whatever child is born, and he is verily born after the right way of orthodoxy, namely Islamism, afterwards his father and his mother bring him up as a Jew, Christian, or Gubre. The wife of Lot associated with the wicked, and her posterity failed in the gift of prophecy. The dog of the seven sleepers, at Ephesus, for some time took the path of the righteous, and became a rational being. He said this, and a body of the courtiers joined him in intercession, till the king acceded to the youth's pardon, and answered, "I gave him up, though I saw not the good of it." Knowest thou what Zal said to the heroic Rustem? "Thou must not consider thy foe as abject and helpless." I have often found a small stream at the fountainhead, which, when followed up, carried away the camel and its load. In short, the vizier took the boy home, and educated him with kindness and liberality. and he appointed him masters and tutors who taught him the graces of logic and rhetoric, and all manner of courtier accomplishments, so that he met general approbation. On one occasion the vizir was detailing some instances of his proficiency and talents in the royal presence, and saying, "The instruction of the wise has made an impression upon him, and his former savageness is obliterated from his mind." The king smiled at this speech, and replied, "The whelp of a wolf must prove a wolf at last, notwithstanding he may be brought up by a man." 2 years after this a gang of city vagabonds got about him, and joined in league, till on an opportunity he murdered the vizir and his 2 sons, and, carrying off an immense booty, he took up the station of his father in the den of thieves, and became a hardened villain. The king was apprised of this event, and, seizing the hand of amazement with the teeth of regret, said, "How can any person manufacture a tempered saber from base iron, nor can a base-born man, O wiseacre, be made a gentleman by any education?" Rain, in the purity of whose nature there is no anomaly, cherishes the tulip in the garden and common weed in the salt marsh. Waste not thy labor in scattered seed upon a briny soil, for it can never be made to yield spikenard. To confer a favor on the wicked is of a like import, as if thou didst an injury to the good. This story is about a group of Arab robbers who take control of a mountain and terrorize the surrounding villages. The king's troops and the superintendents of nearby districts decide to send a spy and some warriors to attack the robbers while they are out on a raid. The robbers are caught and brought before the king, who orders them to be executed. One of the vizirs intercedes for a young member of the group, who is only starting to mature, and the king eventually agrees to spare the boy's life. The vizir takes the boy home and educates him, teaching him courtier skills and accomplishments. Eventually, the boy becomes a successful and respected member of the court. The story is meant to demonstrate the idea that education and association with the virtuous can change a person's life, even if they come from a difficult background.